First, it is the great initial gold rush of the 19th century. That's one thing. Second, it takes place when you have transportation that will get people to the mines. Third, it is an international gold rush.
The thing about the gold rush is it probably wouldn't have been so important if it wasn't for the fact that it's timing. Timing is everything. The United States was ready for an adventure.
This spirit of adventure coincided with the acquisition of California and fulfilled in the minds of many Americans' manifest destiny, the concept that the nation's expansion was divinely ordained.
What greater sign of God's grace, of God's great plan, than the discovery of all this gold in California? Gold just for the taking. Everybody could come. People came from everywhere. It wasn't just folks from the eastern United States. Everybody rushed in. Everybody wanted a piece of that golden dream.
The gold rush was really a male experience. It was a large group of young men who traveled out here because they felt that they would make their money and go back. They had somebody at home, maybe a fiance, or maybe just the hope that with their capital, they would go back and get married and be successful.
Going to California was every bit as adventurous as being there.
And by early in 1849, thousands had already begun boarding ships and sailing around Cape Horn to California. Thousands in the Mississippi Valley and Ohio Valley began overland treks to California at the same time. And then others tried a new route, the Panama route. They take a steamship down to the east coast of Panama and then cross the isthmus to the west coast, where they would board another steamship for San Francisco. So 3 principal routes to the gold fields of California in 1849.
Probably the most popular is the sea route. It was generally considered to be the safest.
The sea captains knew it. They'd been involved in the hide trade, so they knew their way perfectly. The problems came about when the ships arrived in San Francisco. Then the crews jumped ship, and they promptly went out to dig in the gold fields.
The voyage from New York to San Francisco cost as much as $400, a substantial sum for the time, as was the 18,000-mile length of the route.
The trip would take 5 to 7 months, which is unbelievable for us to think about. This is hardly a gold rush, you know. I mean, rush is a relative term.
In the early days of the rush, passengers sailed on anything that would float, often putting up with seasickness, spoiled food, boredom, and the notoriously rough seas around Cape Horn.
Too fiercely are we jerked from side to side to get anything in the shape of rest. When a heavy lurch shakes us, we have to hold on with all our might, then lie in terrible suspense, lest the next wave bring the ship herself to her beam ends. John Linville Hall, passenger aboard the Henry Lee, 1849.
Later, the demand for better passage to California provided the incentive for improved ship design. The result was one of the fastest ships of the 19th century, the California Clipper.
One of those clipper ships, the Flying Cloud, made a passage some 10 or 13,000 miles from New York or Boston to San Francisco, made the passage in 89 days in 1851.
The most impatient 49ers found an even shorter route to California by crossing the Isthmus of Panama.
On paper, it looked like the quickest. From the schedule, it appeared that you could do it in 30 days. So many of the Argonauts chose the Panama route, but it turned out to be a pathetic delusion.
Crossing the isthmus was really an adventure because we think today how easy it is to cross the canal, and of course in those days there was no canal.
The passage across the Isthmus of Panama was awfully difficult, haggling with native boatmen for passage up the rivers of Panama, and then you had to trek over low mountains and through snake-infested jungles to Panama City on the Pacific coast.
Though dangerous, the 60-mile crossing was exotic and exhilarating to some.
The birds singing, monkeys screeching, the Americans laughing and joking, the natives grunting as they pushed us along was enough to drive one mad with delight. Jenny McGuire, Chagres River, Panama, 1849.
No matter the quality of one's experience in crossing the isthmus, It was no preparation for what took place in Panama City.
There you had to wait, often for months, for the arrival of a steamship from San Francisco. And when these steamships arrived, there were normally 700 to 800 men waiting to climb aboard a steamship that could only hold 200 or 300 passengers.
And when you were stuck on the Pacific side, then you were vulnerable to the many diseases that inflicted people in the tropics.
While many languished in Panama City waiting for their ship to come in, thousands back in the States converged on jumping-off towns like Independence, Missouri, and began the overland trail to California.
You could not leave the jumping-off towns until the grass was up because you had to feed your stock. And so you wouldn't leave until the middle of April or the 1st of May, and you'd have this envelope of time in which you had to get to California before the snows fell in the Sierra. So you had only 4 or 5 months.
These pioneers, for the most part, took the central route to California, a route that followed the Platte River through Nebraska and into Wyoming, and then through South Pass, the pass in the northern Rockies, then either through Idaho or Utah, where they would then strike the Humboldt River in northern Nevada and follow the Humboldt River across northern Nevada or across the Sierras into California.
The early part of the trail was often overshadowed by the specter of a deadly disease.
With the rains came disease. Cholera, introduced of course from Asia, was the big killer of 49. We think some 5,000 49ers died of cholera before the trail reached the high plains, more arid country, and left the disease behind.
Cholera outbreaks were not the only danger facing the overlanders. Towards the end of their journey, they had to cross a 40-mile desert.
This was the hardest part of the journey. People are crying for dying, people who are left by the wagons to die, animals lining the road, abandoned goods. It's a scene we really can't comprehend.
We were coming along and passed some men who said, "For God's sake, give us some water." But we had none. Then they said, "We will have to die." We rode on and looked back. Not a sign of them could you see. A.T. Jackson, August 1849.
For those who completed the 2,000-mile trail, it was the experience of a lifetime, and they knew it.
There is so much variety and excitement about it, and the scenery through which we're constantly passing is so wild and magnificently grand that it elevates the soul from earth to heaven and causes such an elasticity of mind that I forget that I am old. Harriet Ward, 1853.
Whether by land or by sea, the migration to California was unprecedented.
In 1849, approximately 25,000 people came overland to California. That's 25,000 overland and probably about 15,000 around the Horn and 6,000 across the Isthmus.
Thousands more would come to California, all in search of the gold that would make them rich. Finding it, though, would be its own unforgettable experience.
Every 60 seconds, someone, somewhere is making the switch to Tempur-Pedic. Now it's your turn. Call now for your free information kit, including a Tempur material sample, along with a DVD and catalog. Traditional mattresses use metal springs that can cause pressure points, causing you to toss and turn. Only the Tempur-Pedic mattress automatically adjusts to your body while keeping your spine in perfect alignment. Plus, because Tempur-Pedic doesn't transfer motion, you won't disturb your partner when you get out of bed or shift positions. Best of all, Tempur-Pedic will let you sleep on one of their sleep systems for an incredible 90 nights before you make your purchase decision. If you want the ultimate in comfort, if you wish to get more sleep but can't, it's time you make the switch to Tempur-Pedic.
Call 1-800-603-9670 for your free information kit. That's 1-800-603-9670. Call today. Due to our successful TV and radio campaigns, America's largest manufacturer of steel buildings is offering huge savings on select models.
My husband wanted a building where he could store all of his valuable belongings. Well, I wanted something that would look great on our property. We both found what we wanted at U.S. Buildings.
They're durable, long-lasting, even fire-resistant.
Thanks to their easy-to-read step-by-step construction manual and excellent customer support, our building was constructed in 1 weekend.
These specials won't last long. Buy now and save. Call U.S. Buildings today.
Nothing's better than vine-ripened veggies, filled with flavor and freshly picked. Delicious! But out of season, the price goes up, and sometimes you may think you're eating cardboard. Unless you have your own greenhouse, but that would cost a fortune. Not anymore. Introducing the amazing pop-up greenhouse. In seconds, an empty space becomes an incredible garden place. The pop-up greenhouse is perfect for any space in the home. Just place your plants, water, turn on the sun. And because there's never a cloudy day, your garden grows like never before. So you can enjoy fresh tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, all types of expensive lettuce, and more, all year long. Here's the best part: no pesticides, ripened on the vine.